Right. Welcome to tonight's meeting of Audit and Governance Committee. Last one for this calendar year. Members in attendance in this room, please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone and switch off when finished. Reporting officers joining via Teams, please switch cameras and microphones on when speaking and off when finished. Use the hands up icon on Teams to indicate a question or comment for the chair to invite you to speak. The meeting this evening will be live streamed and a recording of the meeting will be available on the council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Any exempt items, private, on the agenda, the chair will move the Local Government Act 1972 for the meeting to go into private and the live stream will be stopped. There may be a short delay before taking those items. Right, first item is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Fatima Begum.
Thank you. Minutes of the meeting, item 2, minutes of the meeting for the 8th of October on page 6. I'll go through each page for accuracy. Page 6, any amendments? Any corrections? Page 7? Yeah. Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? Yeah. Page 11? So, yes, Councillor Underwood.
Chair, thank you. At the last meeting, I think it does say this on page 10. Members agreed that the relevant portfolio holder received the report on application for exemptions. The resolution says that consideration be given to whether the relevant report holder received the report on applications for exemptions. Should those be consistent, and should resolution 5 say the relevant portfolio holder should receive the report rather than consideration be given to whether they should receive the report? I hope that's clear.
Thanks for spotting that. Appreciate that. Page 11. Page 12. 13. And page 14. For those in attendance on the night of the meeting, besides what Councillor Underwood has pointed out needing correcting, are we in agreement that the minutes are true and fair reflection?
Yeah.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Thank you, colleagues. Right, disclosures of interest. And members are reminded that they must disclose both the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interest and any personal interest that they may have in any matters to be considered at the meeting, unless the interest is a sensitive interest, in which event they need to not disclose the nature of the interest. A member with a disclosable pecuniary interest must not further participate in any discussions of, vote on, or take any executive steps in relation to the item of the business. A member with a personal interest, which a member of the public with knowledge of the relevant facts would reasonably regard as so significant that it is likely to prejudice the member's judgment of the public interest, must similarly not participate in any discussions of, vote on, or take any executive step in relation to the items of business. Disclosables, pecuniary interest, and personal interests are defined in the Council's Code of Conduct for members and co-opted members. Are there any declarations? Right. Item 4. Those items on the agenda affected by Section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992 will be identified at the meeting. Any member so affected is reminded that they should disclose the fact and refrain from voting on those items. Number 5. Any urgent business?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6. Are there any references from committee or other bodies?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Right, we now move to item 7 on page 14. And that is on page 15, the SAFT anti-fraud plan progress update. Who's going to give an update on that?
Darren's online.
Hello, officer.
Good evening, Chair. Good evening, members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that. So good evening, everybody. I think you're familiar with me. Just for the purposes of introduction, I'm Darren Bowler, the Council Fraud Manager at the Shared Anti-Fraud Service, and I'm representing Nick Jennings, our Head of Service this evening. So this report is an update of the progress of our anti-fraud work during the this financial year, up to the end of October. So in relation to our prevention work, as well as the provision of the relevant policies and advice on processes, our prevention work also includes alerts, which we circulate for all relevant teams across the council. In the period, 3 alerts were issued on subjects including fake documents, email spoofing, false ID, and guidance on the failure to prevent fraud offence. We also circulated 15 fraud threat reports regarding new and emerging risks on topics including multiple employment, housing applications, blue badge misuse, mandate fraud, purchase cards, discretionary payments, grants, and council tax liability. The delivery of training is on course and is to be delivered with a slight risk of actually over-delivery in this area. So there's no cause of concern for our delivery of training this year. We currently are in the final stages of completing an executive report to senior and other relevant officers in children's services. This is highlighting a fraud that occurred due to a system and process weakness with appropriate recommendations. The issues have already been discussed with the appropriate officers already, and that report would be delivered shortly to them. In respect of reactive work, up until October, 178 allegations of fraud have been received affecting the service areas, including housing, council tax, procurement, maintained schools, and blue badge abuse. 103 of these were reported by staff. 100 cases are live for investigation currently, including 40 which are being reviewed at an initial referral stage. We've closed 20 cases in which 19 we identified fraud. The fraud savings through prevention for the period are £576,000, and we're still investigating cases from previous years which have a combined loss savings figure of £240,000. Not all referrals are made into a case, and where the risk or value is low, we apply a compliance method. And in the year, 37 such cases have identified £65,000 worth of council tax and housing benefit fraud. The introduction of a new policy this year for dealing with alternatives to prosecution for council tax matters has, since introduction, issued 61 penalties, bringing in around £6,000 in revenue for the council. Of the 19 cases closed last financial year, 10 identified recoverable losses totalling £43,000 and £21,000 in savings, which should be collected in this year and subsequent years, depending on the ability of the recovery. The work in respect of tenancy fraud continues, and 4 properties were recovered in the period and relet. Also, 1 property has been recovered for social housing provider in the council's area, and that has also been relet. Referrals to LBC legal team. We have 5 cases referred for consideration for both criminal and civil prosecutions, and 6 cases are live currently with the legal team, 2 of which are not due to be heard in court until 2026. Proactive work. Reviews were completed to ensure there is no fraud or money laundering concerns for 85 right to buy applications and also 2 succession applications. 3 right to buy applications were stopped, saving around £100,000 for the council. Our work on the National Fraud Initiative, has now swapped in Q3 from the national exercise to the SAF's Fraud Hub. But the work by council officers and SAF's staff from 391 fraud and errors in the national operation identified 1.8 million in loss / savings being reported for the council. We will report another time of the work from the Fraud Hub in more detail. However, I thought you might like to know that a test run of data was undertaken in preparation to make sure that we were happy with the Fraud Hub, and by happy fortune, £32,000 worth of savings has now been identified for the council on a number of matches, and that relates to council tax. The progress for the KPI for this year are at the end of the report and are all either on target, part met, or have been completed already. Chair, at that point, I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions? Can I just ask, was not the service recognising some awards recently?
Chair, the reason I'm not here tonight is for exactly the same thing. And yes, we have received an award from the IRV for the work that the team has done. And I'm due downstairs to rather embarrassingly potentially receive another award. I don't know what the outcome is of that yet.
Okay, congratulations on getting through to the final.
Thank you very much.
Hope the team is a success. I really do hope that. So yes, go ahead, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations, on all of that information. I think there has been a very exceptional year on the NFI matches, as you've highlighted in the report. I just wanted to ask, is there any learning that's been identified in terms of improvement of controls in those areas to reduce the opportunities in the future? I'm not sure who I'm looking at, whether it's at Kanchan or you. I don't know who to look at.
Well,
I have got a question after Helen, so go ahead. Go on ahead.
So if I go first, just to say that there's been a continuous process of learning in the last 2 or 3 years with all of the teams in completing the NFI work. So that's the first thing to recognise, is that whilst we support and assist, the majority of the work is done by staff at the council. So that has gone not quite from a standing start, but very, very close to, up to a huge compliance across the authority. So all those officers in all those service areas deserve credit and acknowledgement for that work. It's very difficult when we're talking about these matches because they are so, there's a lot of volume and there's a lot of error as well as fraud. And that needs to be made very, very clear as well. This isn't necessarily all fraud. A lot of it will be error. But where we do identify issues and concerns, and we have done previously, and this year there has been 1 or 2, we do disseminate that across the team, and there are conversations that are had. But a lot of the time, that these errors are on behalf of members of the public in not completing forms correctly, and we find other information about them. So often it's hidden, not in plain sight, but hidden from us, both us and the council team members that do this work. So it's not a system error, as always. Usually it's a person not complying with what they're supposed to have done, either through being deliberate, but in most cases making mistakes on their application forms for various different areas in which they're asking for money or housing or support in other ways.
Is that okay, Helen? Yeah, I've got 2 questions. My first one is in relation to paragraph 10, where it says a new offence of failing to prevent fraud introduced by the Economic Crime and Corporate took effect, and that there was a briefing paper issued to senior leaders. I just wondered where members could get a copy of that. I think that would be useful so that we're kept up to date with changes in legislation that's going on. Is that you may need to condense it, but I think we on audit should be kept abreast of those sort of changes that are going on. Is that possible?
Chair, I believe it is. I don't know quite what point it's reached with the senior leadership team at the council. We've got a piece of follow-up work with them, and I think it will probably include how this gets rolled out more widely across the council, and obviously including members. And I think it will be higher on a training agenda at some point in the very near future for members. But Kanchan may have more information up to date than I have.
Shannon, if you've got more information on that one, please.
Yes, of course. So we can share that. What we did, we produced an action plan in terms of how we are going to comply with this going forward. So certainly we can share that briefing note and the action plan with Audit Committee, and there'll be further updates following that. We have updated our anti-fraud and corruption policies as well. And when this was presented to committee in February, we detailed the new requirements of this particular act at that point in time as well. So again, we'll kind of follow up in terms of any further actions that we need to take as a result of that and inform the committee.
Okay, thank you. And then my second question was with regards to the KPIs. I just wanted, with those where is partly met, what are the plans in order to improve? Because I'm not getting what the plans are. So either of you can come back on that one, please.
Chair, if I may, there's quite a straightforward answer to that. Some of these are part met because they're not due to be completed until the end of the financial year. So we can't show them as met because, for instance, 4 properties recovered with a KPI of 12, and that won't be fully known until the end of the financial year at the end of March. So that's why they're part met. None of these KPIs have any concerns about them at the moment.
Thank you for that. Colleagues, any more questions? If we go to the recommendation of the paper, members are recommended to note the progress by officers and the shared anti-fraud service to deliver the 25-26 anti-fraud plan for the council.
Yep.
So noted.
Yep.
All the best tonight. Take care.
Thank you very much, and with your permission, I'll excuse myself, and my best wishes to the rest of the committee for the evening's work.
Thank you.
Goodbye, Chair.
Night. Right, we now move on to item 8, final external audit plan, from page 20. Over to Matt. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So hopefully I can keep this one relatively brief. So at the previous audit committee, we shared our draft audit plan. It was labelled as draft because we were still completing some of our final planning procedures. Those procedures have now been completed, hence we can share with you our final audit plan. There's no significant change from the version that was shared at the previous committee, so don't propose to go through any of that in any particular detail. In terms of the audit itself, that's kicked off at the start of October. We're working through that pace with Devon team. Obviously, we'll have our formal reports at the next meeting in February, but we're all on track in terms of sharing those reports well in advance of then. So that's all I wanted to say at this stage. Happy to take any further questions.
Colleagues, any questions on the paper, on the plan? Helen, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. You've answered one of my questions, which was that the audit has started. So thank you very much on that one. I did pick up in the reports that one of the things that you were going to offer was an interim meeting, was it, with the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee? And I just wanted to check, is that still on schedule, on target? And you've not forgotten that, have you?
Go on, Matt.
I was going to say, well, I have had a conversation with the chair since the last meeting. We've had a good half-hour conversation in terms of that. So that has happened, but obviously we can have more regular conversations, chair and other members as required. But yeah, that has happened.
Okay. Any questions, colleague? No, right. So if we go to page 20, the Audit and Governance Committee is asked to review and approve the final audit plan ahead of our 24-25 audit of the financial statements and the value for money conclusion.
Yep.
Do we approve?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. We now move to item 9, Luton Railway Station Regeneration Feasibility Study, page 88.
Thank you, Chair. The paper sets out the
Can
recommendation.
you just introduce yourself, please? We
Sorry.
might know you, but the whole world don't, so it might be good.
Yeah,
Thanks.
of course. Yeah, Anthony Swift, Head of Transport Services. The paper sets out the recommendations. That is for the Audit and Governance Committee to note the Luton Railway Station Regeneration Feasibility Study and the update to the Access for All projects in Luton. This report responds to corporate risk reference LBC 0085, quote, the failure to improve the decline and look at the town centre. And one of the control measures pertaining to this risk states, Central Station, a petition and working group have been set up. The council is continuing to actively lobby Network Rail regards station redevelopment. So I will take the paper as read, but in short, the council, working in partnership with Luton Rising, Network Rail, Govia Thameslink Railway and other key stakeholders have commissioned a consortium of consultants to prepare an early stage feasibility study, the scope of which covers redevelopment of the station and regeneration of the wider area. And this project is overseen by a project level working group and more strategic steering group, the latter providing senior leadership, technical oversight and financial assurance. The work began in November last month and will be producing a report for consideration in January 2026. Following the issue of the report, a view will be taken on the appropriateness of developing a Department for Transport compliant business case with a greater focus on the value for money case, continuing to work in partnership with Network Rail and Luton Rising. So this piece of work helps us build on the momentum of station infrastructure changes planned in 2026, specifically the Access for All works that will deliver new lifts and footbridge that will provide full access to Luton Station, and the main works of which are due to start spring 2026 and take 12 months to deliver. Finally, full accessibility of Leagrave Station is currently under review by the Department for Transport following a feasibility study produced by Network Rail. The Council and Network Rail are awaiting an announcement from the Department for Transport regarding which stations will be progressed to the next stage of Access for All business case development, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Hussain.
Can I ask you, in terms of the access for disabled people to the station, when do you think practically it's going to happen, either in Luton first, but Leagrave Station, do you think?
So the Access for All works that focus on Luton Station are committed now. The timescales, the specific dates will be issued to the council very soon by way of a programme that has to be agreed with the main contractor. But the position of Network Rail and Department for Transport is from January, work will begin on site, so there'll be some form of presence at the station, the main works of which will start the spring with a specific date to be discussed with us at the council. And the reason they still have some, the reason they need to be able to issue this programme is because those works will be relatively disruptive and Network Rail will need to find a slot for track position to undertake that infrastructure. But in simple terms, the work is now committed. There'll be some presence from January onwards, work starting in spring 2026, and it will take 12 months to deliver. So it will be spring 2027 by the time works will have finished. And as for Leagrave Station, that is not committed, so that we are hopeful that there will be full accessibility of Leagrave Station, but we await a decision from the Department for Transport about whether or not that particular scheme will move to the next stage of design, as currently that's only a feasibility study.
Does that mean the regeneration of the station in terms of the whole, the bridge and all that, will that be completed by that time scale?
No, the wider regeneration of the station wouldn't be completed in those Access for All timescales. But what we're doing through the work with Network Rail is ensuring that any concept design that will be brought forward for wider regeneration of the station area will be consistent with the Access for All scheme. So the two things are aligned, and therefore we are complementing the work of the new footbridge and lifts, and the detail of which has been shared with the consultants who are developing the full regeneration of the site. So there is alignment there.
And Chair, in terms of the access to the different platforms, at the moment, it's an impossible, for anybody, not with a disability, somebody with a small suitcase cannot even get from, one part of the platform down, and then trying to get up there is a nightmare. Yeah. So will that all be completed with this now that we are, with the region, this access that we're talking about?
Yeah, yes, that's right. The scope of the Access for All works that will start spring of next year for 12 months will include full accessibility to all platforms.
So it will happen in my lifetime.
Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. So one of the issues with Luton Station at the moment is the fact that it, in addition to all the physical problems of access, etc., is the fact that it looks shabby and run down. How much does the aesthetic side of the design? How much does that play a part in the new design and the new station?
Just so to be clear, the question you're asking me is about specifically the Access for All scheme, because there are two things happening here. There is the Access for All works, which is a new footbridge and lifts, and then there is the endeavour to redevelop and regenerate the whole station. Now, with respect to the Access for All scheme, that is driven primarily by an accessibility issue, but and therefore the works are intended to be able to ensure people can travel or can connect to all platforms. So we don't expect, whilst we've had input and we've been consulted on those designs, the aesthetic value is a more general problem, is a separate issue of which we are looking to pick up through this piece of work that's now started for the entire station. Does that answer your question?
I mean, do you recognise the importance? So in this coming to Luton Station, it's the first impression that people get of the town. So it's important that it's basically that it doesn't look shabby. It looks nice. It looks like this is the sort of place I want. This is the sort of station I want to get off. This is the sort of town I want to visit. You want to give that sort of impression. I mean, is that sort of idea all part of the plans?
Thanks. Yeah, I understand the question a bit better now. So Access for All to one side, regenerating and redeveloping the station is a priority for all of those reasons. We have a very tired, very dilapidated, very shabby station that isn't fit for purpose, and that is now recognised both by Luton, but also by Network Rail and other key stakeholders that are part of this. So that aesthetic design, that 21st century welcome that it needs, is absolutely baked into the strategic case for regenerating the station. It isn't just the need to make sure that we can cope with future demand. It's, as you say, we have a lot of growth in this region. We have Universal Studios. We have an expanded airport, all of which will attract the tourism, the visitors to Luton/Bedfordshire. And it's really key that those visitors or commuters have that positive sense of arrival, whether they're staying in Luton or for trips further beyond.
Thank you. So can I just follow on from Councillor Underwood's point, and in response to the point you've made, will that be captured in the feasibility report that comes, because what I'm seeing right now, access to all will bring us up to the late 20th century, because the Disability Act was passed some time ago in the last century. However, that would just make us comparable to like Harpenden down the road. And we are a bigger town than Harpenden. So your response take us into the 21st century. If Network Rail can see that, I have to say I'm a bit disappointed they didn't see the urgency of it before. But what I feel my colleagues don't want to happen is that everywhere around us gets developed by us. If you understand what I mean, everybody's lifting up in the county. Our railway station needs to be brought into the 24th century, one way or another. And will that be incorporated in the feasibility? Because, you know, Councillor Hussain has been here much longer than I would love to see him. I think it would be even nice if he was there to open the station with the other people. Yeah. Because when I used the station, like last week, coming back with a suitcase, I didn't think I want to come off at Luton Station. Oh, I've got a suitcase. There is no lift. I will come off at Parkway and pray that the lifts are working. But if I go to Corby and Kettering last month, they're not a big town like us. There was lift to the platform and the station looked better than ours. So that's a long point I'm making, but it's something is that going to be in the feasibility study to make sure that it happens, please?
The short answer is yes. And I would just add that the importance of this has been escalated with Network Rail. So Network Rail are both representing us as part of this feasibility study at the sort of working group level, but we've also had senior representation from Network Rail to visit the station as part of the more senior steering group that oversees this piece of work. We have briefed the Rail Minister, Lord Hendy, not as Luton Council officers, but through conversations with Network Rail. So we are organising ourselves that gives us the best chance possible to elevate the importance of regenerating the station and the wider area. But in answer to your question about ensuring all of that is captured within the feasibility study, yes, it will be, but there will be more technical work to come as part of a broader business case, subject to the findings of those feasibility study outputs next month.
So when can you report back to us on that point with the feasibility update and the reports? Thank you.
If I can take that one offline and work with Democratic Services about a suitable time to report back to this group.
Please don't make it in this time next year. We won't be too happy. We would like I'm just telling you, I want it back in the next 6 months, because we've been very patient in Luton, haven't we, Hussain? Waiting for this, waiting for it to be updated.
The thing I wanted to say, I saw first time I had that problem was Harold Wilson saying it take 6 for the college at the technical college in '69. And I'm still waiting for some prime minister to deliver it.
Councillor Hussain, you just put the icing on the cherry on the cake to make the point. Thank you so much. Thank you, officer. We look forward to seeing you in the new year and have a festive season. Have a good festive season when it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Right, we've noted the report. Colleagues, if we move to agenda 10, I think we only needed was to note the report, if I remember correctly. Sorry? So noted. Right, so we noted the report. Now move to item 10, climate change risk. Yeah, that's gone up the agenda, that has, hasn't it? Over to you, officer.
Good evening. I'm Kat Wysocka, the Head of Climate Change for the Council. I'll take the report as read, so I'll just give a few highlights. So we've got 2 climate-related risks on the corporate risk register. The first risk is related to reducing of our emissions. So our target is to be net zero by 2040. That relates both to the council and to the town. We've got great ambitions for the town, and we also include some of the airport-related emissions in our quote. It's quite high. It's a high, like medium-high risk. The main reason for that being still a medium-high risk is that we do not yet have a fully costed plans for tackling the level of emissions that we've got at the council and in the town overall. So the plan is with the new head of climate change following my departure, starting in early next year. That will be definitely on their priority list to look into securing first proper resource and then developing costed plans. The climate adaptation risk. That is, we've worded that in quite an elaborative way. We've got more immediate plans to work on that with our insurers, Zurich. We've had a presentation at Luton Leaders raising awareness of that risk and the need for longer term climate adaptation planning with directors and heads of service in June. We had very positive response. People were very thoughtful, raising pertinent questions. So we'll be working with a group of selected heads of service in the services that were listed: property, highways, public health and climate change. We'll work on sort of reformulating that risk and then having a wider exposure with Luton Leaders again. So we'll be able to reformulate that risk to be more logically worded. And as a matter of mitigation, we keep engaging with local, with regional forums, both in the local government East working groups and also with our colleagues in the health sector, with the ICB, because this kind of climate changes in sort of the more of a global approach is something that really needs a consistent regional approach. So we're well linked into this kind of conversations. So I'll stop there and happy to take any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. So obviously, there's an increased flood risk associated with climate change, with increased frequency of heavy storms and heavy rainfall. So is there a recognition that that increased rainfall presents a risk to old buildings? I mean, I'm thinking perhaps of definitely thinking of schools that are sort of dilapidated to some degree. That increased rainfall poses a threat to that to those building structures, in addition to the flooding. So yes, if you could say something about that, about how that issue is being tackled.
Yes, thank you for that question. It's a very important issue, flood risk. So last year, where you may remember the floods of September 24, we've had a very intensive storm event. 5 schools got flooded at that time. We were able to secure 300,000 from the Department for Education to as a 50% contribution to capital works on all of these 5 sites. These were Stopsley Primary, Denby, Leagrave, Ramridge and Beechwood. We carry on liaising with schools. We've completed some drainage surveys at the last of half term, and we'll be working with designers just to on drainage improvements. So we've got a suite of interventions that we're looking at, including flood doors, tree pits, rain gardens. So the schools that were flooded last year will have some interventions in summer 26 and 27, depending on the complexity and when we're able to schedule that. So that's sort of the immediate answer on a wider approach that I guess you were asking. We've assessed all our school sites 2 years ago in terms of flood risk. There were some new flood risk maps released earlier this year, so we'll be looking at reassessing all the schools and the level of flood risk. In the meantime, we keep open lines of communications with schools, so where if they sort of are seeing any concerns or are willing to work with us on drainage improvements, they know that my team is there. And yeah, we've raised that with head teachers and with the schools, but through colleagues in Assurance, we're working with our Assurance provider Zurich, assessing sort of the level of flood risk to our corporate buildings, including schools.
Questions? Just one point. Can I just say, you may have covered it and I've missed it in the report, but we need to, on point 13, strategic approach, we need to include housing because of the new designs of properties. So can you put that in? Because there was a report earlier this year when when the question was raised whether we're going to beat 2023 heat level of 40. Yeah, there was reports across the country how modern properties were beyond 40. There was no way for people to cool down. And especially in social housings that I saw, people were having to buy coolers. And because of the cost of living, they were using as much as their money they could to keep their body cool. Yeah. So given the design of the town, can that be a high priority? Can you insert that, please? And also the economy. Last week, I was at a pension conference, responsible investment, and it was stated that climate change can wipe out 25% of the world GDP. So if it can do that, and they're taking it now, I think a person in your field was saying we've passed the tipping point, potentially of no return. Anything happens in Luton, it's going to affect not just us but our partners. So we need to put that in on the economy as well, because that means people's going to be coming to the council to look for support if a business is out of operation or anything that happens. So can you include that, please, in there as well about the wider economy? You may have that already and I've missed it. So if I have, I apologise.
Out of memory, no, I know we've reviewed because the World Economic Forum every year they release like the tops of global risks, and this year 5 out of the top 10 were related to extreme weather, heat waves, and like ecological catastrophes. So we are reviewing that at our officer working group, the one that meets quarterly. Yeah, I'm happy to. I take the point of the heat waves and the impact on our social housing. Anecdotally, in 2023 we did have requests for heating for the first time, because usually it was the winter. The cold weather in the winter that was raising our service requests for support. But yes, in 2023 we've had requests for funds and for help, for assistance in the heat wave. So yeah, this is the strategic approach is taken by colleagues in public health, but yeah, I'm happy to raise that in relation to our social housing. Thank you.
Social housing, all housing, because we ain't building houses here. We're building homes, which are apartments.
I see. Yeah.
So with the developers, they want to keep the margin. They want maximum profit.
Okay.
But we've got to think about what is being designed in the town moving forward. So if you could please share what you need to share with officers in the housing sector and with elected members, so they're better up to speed to ask those questions. Because once the property's built, we can't do retrofitting as the climate change. Please, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we've had that addressed in the town centre SBD. Yes, in the house town centre design guide, that the heat of the massing of property and the positioning for cooling and best renewables. Yes, yeah. Sorry, I'm not being very eloquent. Yeah, we've had that included.
Thank you so much. So if we can go to the report on page 91, that the Audit and Governance Committee note the report. So noted?
Yep.
Thank you. Move to item 11, corporate risk update. Over to you, Kanshan.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. This report provides the committee with an update on the council's corporate risks and the risk management activities. The committee is recommended to review the updated corporate risk register. At the request of the committee, officers have considered whether the implications of devolution should be added as a risk on the corporate risk register, and details of this is provided within paragraph 6 of the report. Officers have identified that while the potential implications of devolution have been acknowledged, the current level of uncertainty surrounding government proposals and timelines makes this risk speculative rather than immediate. At present, this risk remains under review rather than formal inclusion within the corporate risk register, and officers have said that they will revisit this risk in 6 months' time on that one. In terms of the corporate risk register, there are currently 33 risks on the register. Since the last update, one risk in relation to staff performance has been withdrawn, as there is a review and refresh of population wellbeing risks at this point in time. The risk prioritisation score has remained the same for 31 risks, and the risk score has increased for one risk. So this is in relation to failure to provide resilience and maintain emergency response. The score has been increased from medium-low 4 to medium-high 6 due to an increase in the number of incidents responded to county-wide. The risk score has reduced for one risk, and this is in relation to the failure to have effective business continuity plans. The score has been reduced from medium-high 9 to medium-high 6, as while some plans may not have been reviewed in the last 12 months, there are still plans in place which can be used in the event of service disruption. Section 10 of the report includes a heat map to provide an overview of the council's risk landscape, and it currently shows that the greatest number of risks are currently assessed as medium-high priority by risk owners, and there are 2 risks which remain as high priority. The high priority risks and the update on the control measures are recorded within section 11 of the report, and these relate to the failure to keep to the approved budget and the impact on the financial resilience of the council. The committee will receive a separate report around the Q2 budget risks and financial management later this evening. The second high priority risk is in relation to cyber attack, and again the committee received a presentation on cybercrime and the use of AI to commit fraud at the last committee meeting in October. I'm happy to take any questions on that report, Chair.
Question, Councillor Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 6, Kanchan, about devolution. So I think it's reasonable that that we're not putting this onto having this as a formal risk in the corporate risk register. Could just point out that the white paper is talking about unitary councils, whether it's evidence of failure or where the size and/or boundaries hinder local decision making. I mean, that does apply to us, doesn't it? Our size and our boundaries are an issue when it or will be an issue when it comes to devolution and the any potential merger with another local authority. Is that a reasonable point to make?
I think maybe this one I'll probably have to go back to the relevant officer for more details around this, because I suppose as the more information comes to light in terms of what the proposals are, there's more kind of clarity around what does that mean for unitary authorities around that. I think they will then be able to kind of assess that information and make a judgment, I suppose, in terms of what do we do going forward. So I suppose in terms of that respect, I'll probably have to go back to the relevant risk owner around that for more details around that, and then come back to you on that question.
Okay, thank you. And the last sentence, this will be revisited in 6 months' time. Can we say that it will be revisited in 6 months' time, or if something happens in the meantime, like government make an announcement on evolution that might affect us in the meantime? Is that possible?
Yes, of course, I can go back to the risk owner on that point as well. Thank you.
Any other question? Yes, go on. Yes.
Thank you. I've noticed that we discussed about children's safeguarding before and about the schools reporting regarding the issues that they come across with the children's safeguarding, like smoking and drug-related issues. Thank you for arranging those information. Really appreciate that. So I was going to ask you that whether there is enough measures are in place to keep the children safe from drug-related exploitation, grooming, gang violence, and smoking. Because nowadays we, even in our area as well, we have come across number of cases. So school children are involved in drug-related, dealings and stuff. So is it still medium to high risk, or it should be, reconsidered that whether it's high risk area? Thank you.
We have a general corporate risk which kind of covers obviously children's safeguarding, and they would cover various elements within that when the risk owner kind of scores that particular risk, and there's various kind of control measures in place as well to manage those risks. In terms of the specific points that you've mentioned, I will have to kind of go back to the risk owner to be able to kind of provide you with a response in relation to those aspects. But I think from memory, from the risk register, I'm just trying to see which one that relates to, but there would be a detailed, so it's LBC risk 80 on page 149. That's about, I think, extremism. And then there is another one on the risk register around safeguarding of vulnerable children on page 150. That's LBC risk 63. And again, what they've suggested as control measures in place for that is that they have various policies and procedures that they apply. They're implementing the Families First Pathfinder programme. That's DFE-led innovative approach to work with families. And obviously they're kind of leading with the national reforms, and it's being closely monitored as well. So it's currently graded as a medium high risk, taking the control measures in place. And it does cover a variety of different aspects relating to safeguarding of vulnerable children. So, but in terms of the specific points you've raised about those issues, I'll have to go back to the risk owner to be able to kind of provide you with a response.
Thank you. Just for curiosity, whether they are taking into consideration that the data from different organizations, including the police, that how many in previous year the children are involved in drug dealings and stuff and drug exploitation, and how many in current year. Those kind of data, are they taking into consideration when doing the risk assessment of children safeguarding or not? Thank you.
Again, I'll have to go back to the risk owner for more specific details. But I believe there will be some monitoring that's done at that level, but there should be some individual monitoring done by the school governing bodies working with those schools for particular concerns around individual schools as well. So there would be some action which would be undertaken at a local level as well. But certainly there would be some kind of oversight from the authority with our maintained schools. So again, I'll have to come back to you on that question.
Underwood.
Thank you, Chair. So it's, I think the point that Naz is making is that is this one of the points? Is it because this risk is too general, safeguarding of vulnerable children, and is it worth going back to the risk owner and asking if it can be broken down into separate potential risks? Is that something that's worth asking about?
There will also be a departmental risk register, because this is the corporate risk register. They tend to kind of keep the risks more kind of high level, which kind of covers, I suppose, more than one aspect across the organisation. Otherwise, you can have a risk register with a number of risks on there, which becomes unmanageable. But there is a departmental risk register, so it may be that they might have more detailed risks on their departmental risk register. So again, I can explore that with them for further information on that. Thank you.
Councillor Malik.
Kendra, can I ask you a question on page number 39? If we can have a look, Luton 24 division, there are some major risks are appearing like high risk, and that include the cyber and health and safety. For cyber, what are security measure we are taking? Are we giving some training to staff to control and using some softwares or something? And secondly, about the health and safety measures, can you please guide us?
On the cyber risk, there's an update on page 140. The authority has a cyber incident plan, which has been approved by the Data and Governance Board. So if there was a cyber attack, there'll be a certain plan in place which is required to be followed to deal with that incident. They're also developing and delivering a business case for phishing simulation. So this is to kind of test our systems to see the awareness within the organisation about not clicking on links and things like that. We also have a mandatory requirement for staff to complete cyber awareness training. And again, that is being monitored at CLT levels. There's regular reminders for staff to complete those. I believe there's six different modules available on the e-learning platform, which staff are being asked to complete, and that is being monitored, and staff are being encouraged to undertake that arrangement. And again, there was a presentation which was delivered to this committee at the last meeting in October, just around the use of AI and the cybersecurity risks and how that can be used to commit fraud. I believe there also is a cybersecurity training available for all members as well. So again, that is something that has been scheduled for all members to participate in that training event too. In relation to health and safety, again, in the appendix, again, I'll just try to find the risk around that, but it is led by through CLT. There are policies and procedures in place which are required to be followed in terms of health and safety. There are a number of strategies in terms of the risk assessments that are undertaken. So again, from an employee point of view, there would be various forms that we'd have to complete from a risk assessment point of view to make sure that we can kind of undertake those particular duties or tasks as well. So it's all kind of led by policies, procedures, and obviously the regulations that we have to adhere to as well.
Questions, Councillor Malik? No? Okay. Thank you. We now go back to page 136 with regards to this item. The committee is recommended to review the updated corporate risk register we've reviewed. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. We now move on to item 12 on page 164. National Fraud Initiative Update Report. Kanchan, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a more detailed report of the National Fraud Initiative exercise to provide a committee with an update on the progress which has been made on this exercise. And the committee is recommended to note the update and the results from the exercise. So the National Fraud Initiative was introduced in 1996 by the Audit Commission and is now managed by the Cabinet Office. It involves data matching across over 1,100 public and private sector organisations to prevent and detect fraud. The main data matching exercise occurs every 2 years, and since its inception, NFI, the National Fraud Initiative, has identified nearly 3 billion in fraud and error across the UK. The internal audit team, together with SAFs, lead on this particular exercise for the council. Matches are reviewed by council officers according to the strength of the match and are not considered fraudulent until they have been fully investigated. And you'll note that many of the matches just need that administrative action rather than fraud investigation, and less than 10% of the matches that we do receive for review will identify discrepancy, making the exercise onerous yet still essential in uncovering that hidden fraud. Any significant matches, we'd refer them to SAFs for investigation. So as part of this exercise, we received just over 10,000 matches. Of these, just over 6,000 matches related to the housing waiting list. And at the point in time we were reviewing these matches, it was highlighted that there was some erroneous data within that, because unfortunately the report which had been submitted included non-live cases, so where cases have been cancelled. So that increased the volume of the matches that we received back. Steps have been taken with that service to prevent this from occurring in future NFI matching exercises. At the time of the report, council officers have reviewed and closed about 4,800 matches. So that's 46%, which is a good achievement. The reviews undertaken have focused on the high risks for the council. And of the matches closed, we identified 125 cases of fraud and 698 errors, with a further 18 errors which were under review. And this reported an estimated financial outcome of 3.37 million for the council. Just to note that the majority of this is an estimated financial outcome, which is estimated by NFI. So 2.9 million was in relation to housing waiting list, and 51,000 was in related to blue badges. And this is a set amount that NFI identifies as a potential saving from removing that particular applicant from the system. And these could be removed for a number of reasons. So there could be a change in circumstances and they no longer are eligible for social housing, for example. They've either moved or they've not updated or cancelled their housing application. In terms of blue badges, it could be to prevent that potential misuse, because that, unfortunately, that individual is now deceased. In terms of the council tax reduction scheme and the creditors' overpayments, we identified £405,000, which is currently in recovery. So this is the actual money that we've kind of identified and are in the process of recovering. The council tax reduction scheme errors are mainly because someone's either failed to declare an income, and that's affected their entitlement, or they've had a change of circumstances, and again that's affected their entitlement to that reduction. In relation to the creditors overpayments, this is where some duplicate payments had been identified. So again, it could be as a result of an error in processing, or we received a duplicate invoice from the supplier, which resulted in that payment being made twice. In a separate NFI exercise, which is undertaken annually, we received just short of 4,000 matches for the council tax single person discounts, and that was received in December last year. These matches are currently outstanding and will be investigated using a third party to do these reviews, as currently there's not the capacity within the team to undertake this exercise, and this work is expected to be completed by the end of this financial year. As Darren mentioned earlier in his report, we also subscribe to the Hertfordshire Fraud Hub, so that activity will now resume again from Q3 now that the NFI exercise has now been completed. I'm happy to take any questions on that report, Chair.
Councillor Malik.
Kenjana, your report is very good and it's very clear, but I have a question on page number 169, Appendix A. If we can have a look on the council tax reduction scheme, and there are 17 cases are appearing as an error, and also housing waiting list 679 cases are an error. So altogether, if we see the total report, 125 fraud and 698 errors, there is and the review in the 18 errors, what type of errors they are? Can you please guide us? And are they duplicate entries or transactions or something?
So if I take the frauds first, the 125 frauds, so you have 60 cases of fraud relating to the council tax reduction scheme. And this is where there's been a failure to declare a change in circumstances or failure to declare any income which would kind of affect their entitlement to that council tax reduction. In terms of the waiting list, these are where, again, sorry, let's deal with the fraud. So we've got one case of payroll fraud. So this is where we've identified an employee who's working both for the council and for another organisation, and that has been referred to SAS for further investigation. Blue badges, 64 cases of fraud. So these are where the individual has passed away, but we've not been notified. So it's to prevent that potential misuse of that blue badge going forward. And if I take the errors next, so the 17 cases of errors on the council tax reduction scheme, that's an error on the information not being processed in time on our part. The housing waiting list, the 679 cases of error, again, this is where the application has either been cancelled, and it's a case of some of the erroneous data that I talked about with the data submission around that, so some of that relates to that. In terms of the creditors, so we've got 20 errors in total there. So these are duplicate payments, and it's either a processing error where the same invoice has been submitted by different officers for payment, or the company has actually submitted another invoice for payment. And again, from control point of view, again, we've had to look at it to see if there's any kind of further controls that we need to strengthen going forward around that. So if you look in the total matches that they've looked at, that they had 1,734 potential duplicates, and out of that they've identified 20. So again, it would be that occasional one that has not followed that right process or that checking process. So again, it's kind of working with the services to see what else we can do on those particular areas.
Anjana, 698 plus 18 errors. What are we taking, doing some more strategy to control these errors in future? Are we doing some changing strategies, some plan? What type of measures are you taking? Because 700 in altogether, 16 errors are too much.
Many of these errors are because the actual individual, the member of the public, hasn't informed the authority of a change in circumstance or you know, the information that's relevant to that application that they've made. So although they have processes in place for the member of the public to inform them, it's not been done, you know, in terms of notifying the authority. So that's where some of these errors have been picked up on those. I think the majority of them, again, relate to 679 cases related to the housing waiting list. So again, just that point, the majority of that is because that erroneous data that we had originally. So if they'd had taken off the cancelled applications, we'd only be dealing with the live cases. You know, so that number, I suppose, throws everything out of that, you know, in terms of context around that. But again, it is down to kind of the members of the public kind of informing the authority of any changes in circumstances, so we'll be able to deal with that on a timely basis.
Any more questions? No, okay, so we go to page 164. The committee is recommended to note the update and the results from the council's participation in the National Fraud Initiative exercise. So noted?
Yeah.
Thank you. We now move on to item 13, internal audit plan update and follow-up of the internal audit recommendation, page 173. Over to you, Kanshan. Thank you.
This report provides the committee with an update on the internal audit work undertaken up to the 30th of September 2025, and to highlight any key internal controls issues arising from the work completed and areas where assurance can be given. The committee is recommended to receive the internal audit plan update report. As at the end of Q2, we have delivered 44% of the total planned audit days and are on target to complete at least 90% of the plan by year end. At the time of writing this report, we had issued 17 final audit reports and certified 3 grant claims to confirm that the terms and conditions of the grant were met. In terms of the audit opinions issued, we have issued 1 limited assurance relating to the management of that, and a summary of the key findings together with an update from management is detailed within section 12 of the report. In terms of the key findings, we identify through our review that the council's VAT manual is outdated and currently no VAT training is provided to staff to ensure that this is accounted for correctly and consistently across the organisation. We also identified out of a sample of 20 suppliers, 2 suppliers whose invoices did not contain the sufficient information to determine whether the VAT had been applied correctly. There are associated risks with that. So if supply invoices do not comply with HMRC requirements or lack adequate information, there is a risk that VAT reclaims submitted by the council may be subject to challenge, which could result in non-recovery of VAT. Our review of 3 monthly VAT returns identified 2 instances where returns had not been submitted to HMRC without evidence of independent review and authorisation. And without this, it does reduce assurance over the accuracy of the VAT returns submitted. There was also, at the time of the audit, we'd identified that the partial exemption calculations had not been undertaken for several years due to the complexities involved in performing this exercise. An external VAT advisor had been engaged to complete this work for 24-25. So together, taking the control weaknesses in place, together with having an outdated VAT manual and no training provided, it does increase the risk of non-compliance with VAT rules across the organisation. And on that basis, we issued a limited assurance opinion on that particular piece of audit. In terms of a progress update, management have identified that a draft updated VAT manual has been produced and it's due to be finalised for publication. There is also a separate schools VAT manual which is being developed, and guidance will be issued on those high-risk areas, which will be communicated to staff, and a training plan would also be put in place. A checklist will also be developed to evidence the independent review and sign-off of the monthly VAT submissions. And the partial exemption calculation for 24-25 has now been completed and submitted to HMRC. In terms of the follow-ups, we will be undertaking a physical follow-up of this piece of work because we have given it a limited assurance opinion, and this is normally done within 6 months after the final audit report has been issued to give the controls a chance to be embedded so we can go back and revisit to see how things are working. In terms of the follow-ups of other audit recommendations, we've followed up on 151 recommendations, of which 76% are now fully implemented, 21% are in the process of being implemented, and 3% are due to be implemented. And again, details of this are provided in Appendix C. So this relates to the high and medium priority recommendations. So I'm happy to take any questions on that report, Chair.
Yes, Nadia, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to see that the VAT related issue is highlighted. That is very important, and no doubt at all that non-compliance will result in penalties and everything, reputational loss. Rightfully, all these things are explained on the report. It's great. What about like in previous year, the external auditors were saying that they had to reperform some of the VAT audit, internal audits again. Are you in close communication with them to make sure that it's not happening this year? Thank you.
There'll be I suppose with the external auditors, and I don't know, Matt, if you wanted to kind of add to that, there is a certain piece of work that the external auditors are required to do. So they would audit those areas, whereas we would look at the internal control aspects of the work that we do. there is a piece of assurance work that you need to do separately in terms of the materiality and the effects on the accounts. In terms of other audit work, again, the piece of work that we did on bank reconciliation, I know the external auditors have also picked up on that, and they've used some of the work that we did in that respect to perform their own checks and reviews on that area. So again, you know, where there are issues, we'll have that open line of communication to see what else we can do, or if there's anything further that we need to do on those areas. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I think that's a helpful summary, Kanchan. It's obviously that, you know, we try and rely on as much of your work as we can do, but the standards, I guess, limit that. So I guess we try and keep it as minimum as we can do. The key is that efficient approach between the two of us. We're sharing findings and following those up as required. So yeah.
Helen, yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask a little bit more about the actions that are going to be taken forward on the VAT, from the VAT audit. I think I was hoping to see completion dates for them, but as you've said, Kanchan, that you'll be doing the follow-up review within the 6 months. Is it reasonable for us as a committee to assume that those actions will be completed within that 6 months? Because I think these are very important areas that I would expect to see completed in a timely way.
That's right. So we do have timescales. So normally, if it's a high priority recommendation, we'd normally suggest within a month to have that high priority recommendation implemented. And mediums and lows, again, depending on the nature of those, up to 6 months and maximum is the implementation date of those. So again, we would expect all of these recommendations to be fully implemented by the time we go and revisit and do that physical follow-up. So yes, the expectation is that they'll be completed within 6 months.
Thank you. So we can look for them at the update report after April next year. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Any more questions? Okay, colleagues, if we can go to page 173 of our report. Committee is recommended to receive the internal audit plan update report, which covers the period 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of September 2025. We so received?
Yep.
Brilliant. We now move to item 14, which is a separate report that was sent to follow, and that is the Chair's annual report of the Audit and Governance Committee. Over to you, Kanchan. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last report from me today. So this is for the committee to consider the annual report on the work undertaken by the Audit and Governance Committee and associated matters. As you're aware, SIPFA's position statement and guidance for audit committees sets out recommended practice and guidance for local authorities to adopt effective audit committee arrangements. This also includes a requirement for an annual report on how the committee has complied with the position statement, discharged its responsibilities, and an assessment of its performance. And this annual report meets this requirement. The report sets out the purpose of the audit committee, the audit committee membership and attendance during 24-25, member training received, and a summary of the work undertaken by the committee during 24-25 to discharge its responsibilities under 4 key areas. So this is the performance of the internal audit function, governance, risk management and associated control environment, integrity of the council's financial statements, and the external auditor's performance objectivity and independence. This is supported by a list of reports presented to the committee at Appendix A, and the key findings from the external effectiveness review of the performance of the Audit and Governance Committee undertaken by the Good Governance Improvement is also included within the report, together with a progress update. So the committee is recommended to review and approve the Chair's annual report of the Audit and Governance Committee for 24-25 and to refer this report to full council for its consideration. So I'm happy to take any questions on that report, Chair.
Go ahead, Helen. Yes.
Yeah, firstly, I think it's a really good report. I think it's really clear, and I thought it covered the work of the committee very well. I've just got a couple of points, if that's okay. In paragraph 39 about the SIPFA skills assessment framework, I think it would be really helpful for us as a committee to understand what the outcome of that was. So yes, I know it's going to inform the training requirements, but it would be helpful to understand what our collective view was of our skills and our gaps, so we can understand that before the training. And then my second point is just a minor one, and sorry, it's a personal one. On the attendance, I actually did come to the June meeting, and whilst I'm not and I'm not ticked as being there, so I apologise. Can we amend it to have me ticked? I'm not referenced in the minutes as either attending or apologies, but I am within the comments and the questions. I was there. Thank you.
Right, any more questions, Councillor Hussain?
Yeah, I've kept it in the terms of the attending the meeting. Is everybody done the training on the audit and governance, which is mandatory? Is all members, elected members, done that?
Sure.
So we delivered 2 training sessions, well actually 3 now, so in June, July 2024 and then again in June 2025. So I think we've covered all of the elected members during that time around that.
Councillor Hussain, you looked a bit blank. You don't remember?
I'm not too sure. I mean, I just want to be certain that all members have attended, because this is one of the criticisms in the past has been from the external people. Members didn't do the training, and perhaps did not understand the complexity of audit and governance. So we need to be mindful of that. Yes.
Yes, I mean, I can certainly go back and have a look at the attendance records on that one, just to kind of double check for you on that one. But I believe with the 3 sessions that we had over that 15-month period, I believe everybody was covered at that point in time. But I will go back and double check for you.
Okay. So if there's no further question, if we can go to the front page, recommendation point 2, the committee is recommended to review and approve the chair's annual report of the Committee of Audit and Governance Committee for 24-25, and to refer the chair's annual report of the Audit and Governance Committee for 24-25 to full council for consideration. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you. We now move to item 15. Q2 budget risk and financial management. Over to Dev.
Thanks, Chair. First, I would like to say there were some questions raised last audit committee. So just bear with us. We are getting all the information ready. We're being quite busy with the budget. So next audit committee will bring all the answers to your questions, Councillor Chaudhry. Yeah. So there was 4 questions. It's already there. Yeah. So Q2, I'm sick of a lot of items on the agenda. So we discussed quite in a lot of detail Q1. So I would like to just update where we are in Q2. So in terms of, you will see on page 193, the audit committee is asked to note the projected overspend is in the region of 9.2. And the main reason for that overspend increase is in children's services. Those have been explained in paragraph 8 to 12. And officers are looking at how we're going to address those overspend and how much is going to be factored as part of 26-27 budget as part of the deficit recovery plan. So the main reason is explained there is there has been overall the numbers has not gone up significantly, and some areas throughout the UK are experiencing increase in numbers, but the cost has gone up significantly, and especially some of the residential placement costs. So looking at commissioning, looking at how best we are procuring those services, but the rest of the services like adult social care, which last year was quite a similar to overspend, is more or less under control. Send transport is more or less under control. Housing is more or less under control. So those areas, there were 4 main areas last year. 3 out of those 4 is under control, with the exception of children's services, and that officers are doing much more further work to see how we can address those so that we have much better control on cost and demand in 26-27. But overall, we know that throughout the industry, there are a lot of, especially placement costs, residential placement costs has been going up significantly. Then on paragraph 14, it talks about the savings, so we're still on target of delivering 8.7 million out of the 10.7, and some of the savings will be sort of reprofiling to be delivered in 26, 27. Paragraph 16 talk about the slippage in the capital program, and most of the slippage in the capital program is to do with the stage project. And now we've got the approval from what you call the building control, and that project is going to start. And that's what we are waiting. So those cash flow has been profiled, and capital program has been profiled in 26, 27. And the sum, which is linked with the affordable sort of in terms of TAPS, temporary accommodation purchase scheme. Paragraph 25 talk about the mitigation plan, and you will see here it's about temporary accommodation, financial management, forecasting. So those are areas which we've discussed last at Q1. So the forecasting, it's much closer. So we're looking on a monthly basis, and that's what we are trying to do as much of sort of as a robust forecasting. In terms of the next page, 198, in terms of reserves and financial resilience, still we haven't sort of looked at the reserves, that you look at 26, 25, 26. So we've got contingency, which we have set as part of the base budget. And normally when we use those contingency, we need approval from the chief exec and the leader. So Q3 will be looking at the trend forecast, and then how much we're going to recover and how much we may have to use those contingency, and how we're going to sort of have a balanced budget. If not, how you're going to use reserves, maybe one-off reserves. But our level of reserves over the years, we have not really used reserve other than for one-off funding, but it's becoming quite difficult. But some positive news here, that the fair funding review, which have indicative figures, and Luton is one of those areas where we've got high level of need, high level of deprivation, and our resource, council tax, most of our council tax are band A to C. So we don't raise as much council tax as those areas where we've got sort of big properties. So the fair funding review will allocate more resources toward councils with deprivation and needs. So potentially we'll be expecting to be part of the gainers, and that probably will be helping us to make our budget going forward more resilient. And that will be a 3-year settlement, so that will be much better for planning purposes as well. So we're just looking at the positive side in terms of fair funding review, but so far council has managed of the austerity and COVID and everything. So far we've managed, so hopefully fingers crossed that indicative figures look that we will be among the gainers. And that's from me, Chair. I'm quite happy to take any questions, and yeah.
Then, okay, Councillor Underwood, then Hussain, then Helen, if I go that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In paragraph 26, Dev, it's talking about the return on investment in the transformation program. Is that correct? So, so the current ROI is 1 to 1.1 against the original target of 1.4. What sort of impact is that going to have on the is that going to have an impact on the budget and on financial planning?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And you will see when we, just a paragraph above, we set a deficit recovery plan and transformation 10.7, and out of this, we've planned to deliver 8.7. So overall, when we look at the transformation, which includes DRP, the deficit recovery plan, we are nearly 85% of delivering that 10 million. But within that, there was a planned savings of 5.5 to be delivered not only in 25, 26, but 26, 27. So there has been delays, there has been complexities, and that's what we are tracking, the original target and how much, as at today's date, we are planning to deliver. So when we bring the budget and we bring the Q3, I will have a much more better view of the forecast of how much of that savings will be delivered. But what we are also tracking is how much investment is going and what return is getting from the investment. So when you look at the budget, which is being finalized now, and will be presented to executive in January, we will have those details in the transformation. Those are savings which we are going to. Some of them will be pre-profiled for 26-27. So the impact on the 25-26, it won't other than the 2 million, which you're seeing out of the 10.7, we're doing 8.7. But the bigger picture of the 5.5, some of them have to be pre-profiled, redelivered in 26-27. So you will see a savings target for 26-27, which will include some of these savings profile.
Okay, so it's essentially stretching out the savings, the transformation program. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. Couple more, please, Chair. Something more specific about the stage. I think it's mentioned in paragraph 14. Is that no, sorry. Paragraph 9. Where we're talking about the pressures on the finances, and it's 1.655 million linked to Buckle Close and the stage delays. But I don't see anywhere in the report where there's mitigations against those delays. Have I missed that?
So in terms of the stage, it was outside our control. We were waiting for the building regulator to issue. Now we've got that. The project, I think, is already started a couple of weeks ago. So we had to wait. And this was not just a Luton, it's nationally because of the cladding and because of all these things, high rise, the building regulator had to go and do further checks before they approve any building high rise. But that's government has the regulator has approved, and the stage project will have already started. So the work has already started the stage. In terms of in terms of Buckle Close, that we are going through a procurement process. So that, as I said last time, when we've got the final figures, then in Q3, I will go in much more detail how much is that project is going to cost and what is the level of overspend on that project. And children's services, as I said, we are working. There's a deficit recovery plan which will be reflected in 26-27 budget. And those are the three areas which are concentrating because adult social care, send transport, and housing, those are the three under the demand-led areas. We've got more or less those are under control.
Antwoord? Okay, that's okay. Councillor Hussain?
That in terms of the send transport and the review, is that now with the, is there going to be an increase in funding from the central government under the fair funding review? So that is one of the stress area for the council.
So there is an acknowledgement from central government. So when we'll be presenting the budget, we'll go in much more detail because the fair funding is quite a massive piece of work which central government has done and acknowledge needs, and SEN will be part of that. And then you will see in the budget, there's an acknowledgement that more funding will be allocated to sort of areas where you've got high demand and need. So hopefully that areas we will be sort of already, you will see in the budget, there will be sort of allocation there. Yeah. So homelessness, temporary accommodation, adult social care, children's services, those are the demand-led areas. Yeah. And as I said, because of our level of grant which we have been receiving over the years, now based on the new formula, there will be more. We expect more funding to be allocated towards council, not just Luton, and there's 7 or 8 London borough, including Luton, where the need has gone up sort of significantly. So that's what we expect. But the provisional settlement will be announced week commencing 15th of December. So we are fingers crossed on the 17th of December, just before Christmas. So yeah, hope you have a good Christmas present, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel for you and your colleagues. Councillor Hussain, any more questions?
No.
Yeah. Helen, have you got any questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Dev. Am I right in remembering that at Q1, the overspend was just over 6 million? So it's gone from just over 6 million to just over 9 million in this quarter. Yeah. Okay. So I'm conscious you've said that you're working on it and you'll be building it in as part of the 26-27 budget work. I think I'm just keen to get a view from you of whether you feel it's getting close to increasing this the budget risk higher that we talked about earlier in the risk register, or are you still satisfied that the risk register assessment is okay?
I said this is a very good question. So there is an acknowledgement from central government as part of the fair funding review that Luton deprivation is high and is required of more resources. So when I said that we'll be gainers among the fair funding review is already to address all the gap which you have in children's services and all those areas where cost has been increasing. And although we've got the fair funding review, cost will carry on increasing. Yeah, the demographic pressures, inflation, cost will increase. But at least we'll have some sort of level playing field in terms of the funding so that we can address those needs. In terms of the risk, I think, yeah, you're right. It's still a risk because children's services is one child can cost 500,000 easily. Yeah, so if you've got two, it goes back. But I think we've done a lot of work in terms of adult social care, and transport, homelessness, those under control. So we're trying to focus much more on children's services. But at this stage, looking at the focus, which is 6, yeah, it's a high risk area. But we will try to do all the mitigation plan and address some of the underlying sort of core pressures and to see how much we can address those core pressures in 26-27. Yeah.
Thank you. So is it fair to say that we look at after you've done the work on the budget for the 26-27, when you know what the allocations will be and the Q3 forecast will be, that there will be that time to take another consideration as to whether the budget risk is okay or whether it does need to change?
Absolutely. And part of the budget, although Q3 will come out maybe around March time, but in the budget, we've already addressing those risks and say how the fair funding review, we don't know the fair funding review, it will be announced, but hopefully we're saying, hopefully we might be among the gainers. But in the budget, I will be addressing those risks and to say how much additional resources, which areas will allocate those resources, and how we can make the budget more sustainable. And that's what we're looking at, resilient and survey. And that's the main point we're making, how we address those risks. Yeah. But the point is, it will be in the 3-year settlement, so you can plan. Yeah. But so far, the council has I've said, managed of the COVID and of the strict measures. Council has managed, so there has been sort of good prudent financial management, and hopefully with fair funding, it will help us to manage those pressures going forward.
Okay, right. I've got a couple of questions. With regards to the items, paragraph 17 of the commercial strategy, because we're not making the target on traded services. The review of the commercial strategy, can we be fed back? What's the outcome of it? We don't need to detail, but what's changed as a result of it on traded services? I know it's economically challenging out there, but there are still businesses, even with the challenges, that are making profit. So once the review's done, if we could get an idea what's going to change in order to get back, that would be really helpful.
And you did raise that question last time, Chair, and I've got all these, so I'll bring it comprehensive. Thank you.
I'm glad you remember better than me, brain. And then my other question I've got, I know we've got a strategy, the council had a strategy sometimes for empty homes, getting empty home properties back into use. We've done it for some years. I don't recall if that's been fed back to us, how we're achieving to help with the growth demands on housing. And we are working with a private organisation, you should know who I'm talking about, Dev, in identifying properties through probate. So we find the owners who's relevant can go through probate and claim, but also we get council tax And it would be good if we could get some update how that has been working, how many properties we've identified, that we didn't identify the owners as before that's come back into use and count. It might be very, very, very small, but my mum always said every mickle makes a muckle. So, and given our demands, our growth demand pressures, it would be good if the committee found out those two bits of work, are they dovetailing in together? If you could have that, that would be really good.
Yes, Chair. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, on that. Right, if there's no further questions. Right, if you go to page 193. The Audit and Governance Committee is asked to, 1, note the projected overspend of 9.282 million at Q2 and the associated risk, including increased volatility since Q1. Review 2, so if I read them out and we just either agree them or we might have to break them down, but if I read them out in total.
Yeah.
And review the effectiveness of mitigation action being carried out in place. 2, endorse the continued focus on transformation and delivery of deficit recovery plan, noting the forecast delivery of 8.7 million against the target of 10.7 million. Seek assurance on the robustness of financial recovery plan and the adequacy of governance arrangement in high-risk areas supported by regular assurance reports on children replacement, adult social care, and capital projects, particularly where Q2 monitoring identifies significant slippage or nil returns. And 5, note the alignment of the Q2 budget risk with the corporate risk register update report, December 25, covering demand-led pressures, inflation, and transformation delivery. Do we all agree to that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Thank you. We now move to item 16, Treasury Management Mid-Year Report for the period ending the 30th of September. Over to you, Dev.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And this is the Council approved the Treasury Management Strategy and sets the borrowing limits and CFR and all those sort of indicators which we have to do under what we call the Prudential Code. And this is an update on the 6-year report. So last year we were quite late, Chair, and this year we are trying to bring it as soon as possible. So this covers the period from April to end of September. And if you look at the recommendation, Chair, it says recommendation to note that the Council did not breach any of its prudential limits. So that's what is important. So if there are any breach of prudential limit, then we'll have to take it to full Council, because full Council set our borrowing, our capital, our CFR, and all those prudential code, and you've got to make sure we deliver within those. The report goes in some detail about the current position and how much you borrowed. Some of the things which we've discussed earlier, Chair, part of Q2, that some of the capital program had the slippage. So when the capital program is slipped, it gets transferred from 25-26 to 26-27. And it also talk about the risk with the economy, about inflation. There's quite some general about the economy. It talks about the capital program. So most of these, which is in this report, follows from Q2. So that's why we wanted to bring Q2 and this report together. That was presented to the executive. And then if there's any specific question, I'm quite happy to take into the question, Chair.
Any questions, colleagues? Helen?
Yeah, I always find this report really helpful and really easy to understand. I take assurance that none of the limits were breached. So thank you for putting that right up in centre for us, because I think that's really important. And sorry if I'm repeating myself from the last meeting, but I think I'd just like to get some assurance on the capital programme. I know you mentioned that it slipped and a lot will move into 26-27. I think I would just like some assurance that the 26-27 and future years capital programme are based on realistic, deliverable elements rather than optimistic, because the capital programmes do always slip, but this is a lot of slippage. This is a lot of slippage. So I'd just like that assurance as well, please.
Yeah, so you will grab when the budget will come, you will see the level of capital program has reduced significantly. So we're being a bit more let's be more realistic, the capacity to spend. So having those in the capital program is okay, but if we can't spend or yeah, let's be more realistic. So the budget will come out. I'm quite happy to brief audit committee of the executive to say you will see there's a significant reduction. It's more realistic now, the level is spent. But the big one where there was slip is the stage. And the stage is the big one where 40, 50 or 60 million was slip. And that was, we're waiting for the approval, that we start the project. And the taps as well, in the last 3 months, we are planning to buy a lot of properties, some of the block of flat as well. So that as well, there's a lot of effort has gone. But overall, there's some project which is over optimistic in the spend that we are being more realistic what we are going to spend. Thank you. Thanks.
Or Dev, that if you have any time to rest over the Easter break, you'll be working avidly on capital, given we should get multi-year settlement as well. So we'll hopefully be more realistic in what we can do moving forward. Are there any more questions, colleagues? No? Right, if we can go to page 201. The committee is recommended to, one, consider the content of the 25-26 Treasury Management Mid-Year Review Report to provide assurance on the Treasury Management activity during the period to the 30th of September 2025. Two, note the annual Treasury Strategy Mid-Year Review 25-26 and that the Council did not breach any of its prudential limits. Three, note that this report was presented to the Executive Committee on the 1st of December 2025. Do we all agree and note? Yes, thank you. We now move to, I've just done mid-year report. Right, we now move to page 213, Audit and Governance Committee Draft Work Programme. Who's going to talk? Who's going to talk on that? Anybody? Okay, I'll do it. Right, colleagues, before you is the work programme, item 17 on page 213. Are there anything colleagues would like to add besides what we've already talked to section 151 officer today and also what is pending? Is there anything else you would like to add to the work programme? Because this takes us to the end of the municipal year.
Yeah.
So we've got meeting on the 3rd of Feb. Then we've got a meeting on the 24th of Feb. That's going to be audit. And then on the 3rd of March. So is there anything you would like to add? Go on, Helen.
Add at this stage, Chair, but I was wondering, bearing in mind what the external auditor said that we're aiming for the February date for the accounts, can we remove that from the March meeting? Because I think we've got those on the February and the March agenda on the work plan. And
which one's on both?
The audit results report, there's three. The audit results report, statement of accounts. I think they're on February and on March date. So I just thought we could.
Right, Matt, have you got the report before you? So you can say what's realistic, given.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Remember, I don't want a letter from the minister say we've missed any deadline.
No. I mean, I think. So I was just reflecting on it. I mean, I caught me a little bit by surprise because obviously I knew we put the meeting in on the 3rd of Feb. Because I think at that point there wasn't then another meeting scheduled. Obviously there is now another meeting scheduled, isn't there, on the 24th of Feb. I mean, I think in reality we'd want both of our reports, which would be the audit finance report and the auditor's annual report at the 3rd of Feb, would be my view, just to give you sufficient time to review. I guess there's a question with Dev in terms of whether the accounts are ready for that meeting or not. But yeah, certainly they would be there in February. They wouldn't be there in March, certainly.
So they'll either be the 3rd of Feb or the 24th of Feb, but definitely not in March. And so that's the internal auditors. I know that will come. Internal auditors annual report is fine for March. Is it, Kanchan, or is that too early? March. Okay, so it's just your statement of accounts and audit findings.
Yeah, as Chair, because accounts we have to sign by end of February. So it's the statutory requirement. So
Just wanted to say, if we needed another meeting, I don't want to upset my colleagues. Do it now and we can adjust. Also, we've got to remember for some of our colleagues, it's Ramadan. So please take note that the meeting on the 24th will be starting at 6:15. And then the meeting in March will be starting at 6:30. So please bear that in mind. There'll be a slip in the move in the starting of the time for Ramadan, but then it will go back to 6 after Ramadan. So please bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Right, excellent. So there's nothing we want to add, and we're clear about the agenda, and we've got assurances that there will not be an emergency request for an additional meeting.
that's okay.
No pressure. Right, we're now going to move to in private. So if everybody's agreed, we're going to pass the Local Government Act 1972 Part BA resolution for us to exclude the public from the meeting during consideration of any item listed above. If it's likely that if members of the public were present during those items, there would be disclosed to them and exempt information fall within the paragraphs of Part 1 of Schedule